The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the Earth Defense Force flagship Aurora, its seemingly weathered hull gleaming dully in the distant starlight. Through the bridge's panoramic windows, Admiral Lee Sung watched with experienced eyes as the holographic display tracked the approaching Galactic Empire vessels. Their sleek, angular design spoke of advanced technology and military might, a sharp contrast to the apparently outdated appearance of the human ships. Captain Kim Dai stood at her station, her posture perfect and her expression serene despite the tension in the air. She had served with Admiral Lee Sung for 15 years, and in all that time, she had never seen him lose his composure. Today would be no different, even as humanity faced its first official contact with the Galactic Empire. Their fleet formation suggests offensive intent, Admiral, she reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. They're positioning themselves in a standard containment pattern. Admiral Lee Sung nodded, stroking his chin thoughtfully. The corners of his mouth twitched upward as he observed the Empire's predictable tactics. The fleet before them was impressive, 50 ships strong, their hulls pristine and their weapons systems glowing with barely contained energy. "Sir," Communications Officer Park Jin called out, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "They're hailing us again. Third attempt in the last hour." The Admiral straightened his uniform, though it was already immaculate. "Well, we shouldn't keep them waiting any longer. Put them through, Officer Park." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Imperial Commander Han Yule. His uniform was a marvel of design, all sharp angles and gleaming metals. His expression carried the weight of absolute authority, the kind that came from representing a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. "Primitive Earth vessels," Commander Han Yule began, his voice dripping with disdain. "This is your final warning. We have monitored your civilization for the past decade. Your designs are outdated, your technology inferior. The Galactic Empire claims this sector, and you will submit to our authority." The bridge crew maintained their professional demeanor, but Admiral Lee Sung caught the subtle exchanges of amused glances between them. Captain Kim Dae's lip quivered slightly, the closest she ever came to showing emotion while on duty. "Your ships are surrounded," Commander Han Yule continued, clearly mistaking their silence for fear. "Your sensor readings confirm that our weapon systems outclass yours by several orders of magnitude. Surrender now, and we will ensure a peaceful transition of power." Admiral Lee Sung adjusted his position in his command chair, taking a moment to observe the Imperial commander's confident demeanor. The Empire's ships were indeed impressive, their energy readings suggesting weapon systems that could reduce a small moon to debris. To their scanning systems, the Aurora and its escort fleet must have appeared hopelessly outmatched. "Commander Han Yule," Lee Sung responded, his voice warm and friendly, as if greeting an old acquaintance. "We appreciate your concern about our ship designs. They are rather classic, aren't they? Perhaps we could discuss this over coffee. I just received a fresh batch of Brazilian beans from Earth. They make for an excellent brew." The Imperial commander's face contorted in confusion, his carefully maintained expression of superiority cracking. He looked off-screen, presumably at his own bridge crew, before turning back to face Lee Sung. "This is not a social call," Han Yule snapped, his composure slipping further. "You face the might of the Galactic Empire. Your attempt at humor is inappropriate and suggests you fail to grasp the severity of your situation." Admiral Lee Sung leaned forward slightly, his smile never wavering. "On the contrary, Commander, I understand the situation perfectly. You see, my mother always taught me that good diplomacy begins with good hospitality. The offer of coffee stands, though if you prefer, we also have an excellent selection of teas." The bridge of the Aurora remained calm and professional, but there was a subtle undercurrent of amusement among the crew. They all knew what the Empire didn't, that beneath the Aurora's weathered exterior lay technology that would make the Imperial fleet's weapons look like children's toys. Commander Han Yule's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. You have 1 standard hour to surrender your vessels and prepare for boarding. If you refuse, we will open fire. This is your only warning." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Well," Admiral Lee Sung said, settling back in his chair, "that wasn't very polite of them." He turned to Captain Kim Da. "Captain, would you please engage our passive scanning systems? Let's see what other surprises our new friends might have in store for us." "Already done, Admiral," she replied, her fingers moving across her console. "Their weapon systems are charging, but they're maintaining their current position. Standard Imperial intimidation tactics, exactly as our observation posts reported." Admiral Lee Sung nodded, his expression thoughtful as he watched the Imperial ships on the main display. Decades of careful preparation had led to this moment. The Empire had no idea that their every move had been anticipated, their tactics studied, their technology carefully analyzed through centuries of covered observation. "Send a message to Fleet Command," he ordered. "Tell them first contact has proceeded exactly as expected." "And Captain." "Yes, Admiral. Have the mess hall prepare a pot of coffee anyway. Something tells me our Imperial friends will be joining us sooner than they think." The bridge crew returned to their duties, each hiding small smiles as they worked. Outside, the Imperial fleet loomed menacingly, their weapons charged and ready, completely unaware that they were about to learn a very important lesson about judging books by their covers, or in this case, judging ships by their hulls. The pristine halls of Imperial High Command echoed with hurried footsteps as officers rushed back and forth, carrying reports and urgent messages. In the central command chamber, Commissioner Kang Tae's normally composed demeanor had given way to visible frustration as he paced across the polished white floor, his reflection following him like a restless shadow. "Show me these transmissions again," he demanded, stopping in front of the massive display screen that dominated one wall of the chamber. His aide, Officer Li Ju, quickly brought up the latest communications from Earth. The screen filled with a series of images that made absolutely no sense to the Imperial leadership. There were pictures of small Earth creatures called cats with strange text overlaid on them, short video clips of humans performing odd dances, and something they called reaction images. "This cannot be a proper diplomatic response," Kang Ta muttered, running a hand through his graying hair. "Play the latest transmission." The screen switched to a video of something called a keyboard cat, accompanied by a message that read, "When you threaten Earth with your big scary ships." The cat appeared to be playing a musical instrument while wearing clothing. "Sir," another aide interrupted, entering the chamber with a fresh report. "They're now broadcasting something called, 'Never Gonna Give You Up' on all frequencies. Our communication officers are confused." Kang Ta turned to his chief analyst. "What is the meaning of this? Are they mocking us?" "We believe it's called a rickroll, Commissioner," the analyst replied, consulting his notes. "It appears to be some form of human cultural joke." Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of Earth, Defense Coordinator Song Mai sat in the Central Command facility, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time data from the confrontation. The underground chamber hummed with quiet efficiency as technicians monitored every aspect of the Empire's fleet. "They're scanning our ships again," reported her assistant, Park Min. "Still using the same basic energy frequency. They haven't even attempted to penetrate the quantum camouflage layer." Song Mai allowed herself a small smile as she watched the Imperial scans bounce harmlessly off the outer hull of Earth's ships. Below that seemingly primitive exterior lay layers of technology that would make the Empire's best scientists question everything they thought they knew about physics. "Another message from Admiral Lee Sung," Park Min announced. "He's now invited them to something called a dance-off to settle the dispute." The command center staff maintained their professionalism, but quiet chuckles rippled through the room. They had trained for years for this confrontation, but nothing had prepared them for how enjoyable it would be to watch the mighty Empire completely lose their composure. Back in Imperial High Command, Commissioner Kang Tae received yet another urgent report. "Sir, the humans are now broadcasting entertainment frequencies. They call it A playlist for alien invasion. The commissioner grabbed the report, his eyes widening as he read the list of songs. Another one bites the dust. Space Oddity. And Why Can't We Be Friends? Have our best psychologists analyze these transmissions, he ordered. There must be some logic to this behavior. No species facing the Imperial fleet has ever responded with entertainment. A junior officer rushed into the chamber, looking flustered. Commissioner, they're now offering to teach our crews something called the Macarena as a gesture of goodwill. Kang Tae's face reddened. The Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. We will not be made fools of by these. These. Sir, his aide interrupted gently. They'd just sent us something called a friendship bracelet pattern and asked if we would like to have a slumber party to get to know each other better. In Earth's command center, Song Mai reviewed the latest sensor data. The Imperial ship's energy signatures showed increasing power fluctuations, a sure sign that their crews were getting agitated. Should we show them what we're really capable of? Park Min asked, watching as another scan failed to detect anything beyond their ship's outer hulls. Song Mai shook her head, her eyes twinkling with amusement. Not yet. Admiral Lee Sung has a few more items on his playlist to share with them. Besides, their frustration is providing us with excellent data about their emotional responses and command structure. She brought up a new display showing the Empire's communication patterns. Their once orderly protocol was dissolving into chaos as different ships argued about how to respond to Earth's unusual tactics. Send them the next package, she ordered. I believe it's time for the cat videos where they knock things off tables while maintaining eye contact. As the transmission was sent, Song Mai reflected on how centuries of human preparation had led to this moment. The Empire had expected fear, defiance, or submission. Instead, they got memes, music, and an invitation to a dance party. Their complete inability to process this response was proving to be humanity's greatest weapon. Ma'am, Park Min reported with a straight face. Admiral Lee Sung is now asking if they would like to join him in something called the conga line. Song Mai nodded approvingly. Perfect. Let's see how the mighty Empire handles that diplomatic proposal. Space erupted with light as the Imperial fleet materialized from hyperspace, their ships appearing like a swarm of silver arrows against the black canvas of space. 300 vessels, each one a testament to Imperial might, arranged themselves in perfect attack formation. The sight would have made most enemies tremble in fear. Commander Han Yule stood on his flagship's bridge, a smile of satisfaction crossing his face as he watched his fleet take position. The human vessels looked even more primitive up close, their hulls marked with what appeared to be rust patches and outdated sensor arrays. All ships report ready for combat, Commander, his tactical officer announced. Weapons are charged and targeting systems are locked on the Earth vessels. Han Yule straightened his uniform and cleared his throat. Send one final communication to the humans. They should know the consequences of their disrespect. The human ships floated silently in space, seemingly unaware or unconcerned about the overwhelming force arranged against them. The Aurora, their flagship, maintained its position, its apparently outdated weapon systems not even powered up. Message sent, Commander. No response from the humans. Han Yule nodded firmly. Very well. Commence firing on my mark. Target their engines first. The Empire may still find use for these ships once we've taught them proper respect. He raised his hand, ready to give the order that would demonstrate Imperial power to these upstart humans. All ships, open. The word fire never left his lips. In that instant, every human vessel simply vanished. No flash of light, no sign of movement. They simply ceased to be where they were. Report. Han Yule demanded, his voice rising with sudden alarm. Where did they go? Sensors are unable to locate the Earth vessels, Commander, his science officer reported, frantically working at his station. It's as if they've completely disappeared from normal space. Aboard the Aurora, now existing in a state of quantum displacement, Captain Kim Dae's fingers danced across her console with practiced precision, quantum displacement drives functioning at optimal levels. Admiral, the Empire's sensors are unable to detect us. Admiral Lee Sung sat comfortably in his command chair, watching the Imperial fleet through sensors that operated on principles the Empire had yet to discover. Excellent. Are the gravity well generators ready? Yes, Admiral. Awaiting your command. Lee Sung took a moment to straighten his cufflinks, a small gesture of composure he'd maintained through countless battles. Activate the wells. Let's show our friends what real technology looks like. Around the Imperial fleet, space itself seemed to twist. Invisible forces grabbed hold of their ships, catching them in a web of artificially generated gravity fields. Alarms blared across 300 vessels as their engines suddenly found themselves fighting against forces they couldn't understand or overcome. What's happening? Han Yule demanded, watching helplessly as his perfectly arranged formation dissolved into chaos. Ships drifted out of position, their engines straining against invisible bonds. Sir, weapon systems are not responding, his tactical officer reported, panic edging into his voice. The gravity distortions are preventing our targeting systems from functioning. Nothing is working. The Imperial fleet, pride of the Empire's military might, hung helpless in space, caught like insects in amber. Their advanced engines, capable of crossing light years, couldn't break free from the localized gravity wells that held them in place. Through their comm systems came a familiar voice. Admiral Lee Sung, sounding as casual as if he were discussing the weather. Commander Han Mule, I believe now would be an excellent time to take me up on that offer of coffee. I had my chef prepare some fresh pastries as well. Han Yule stared at his useless command console, his face pale with the realization of what had just happened. The primitive humans had not only outmaneuvered the Empire's finest fleet, they had done it without firing a single shot. Your ships will remain exactly where they are until we conclude our discussion. Lee Sung continued pleasantly. I recommend the Brazilian dark roast. It pairs wonderfully with our situation. In the Aurora's bridge, now visible again to the Imperial fleet, Captain Kim Dae allowed herself a small smile. The Empire's ships are completely secured, Admiral. Their power cores are showing signs of stress from attempting to break free. Adjust the gravity wells to compensate, Lee Sung ordered. We wouldn't want them damaging their lovely vessels. He turned to Communications Officer Park Jin. Please inform our guests that we're ready to receive Commander Han Luol for refreshments, and do remind them that their ship's life support systems remain functional purely by our choice. The Imperial fleet hung motionless against the stars, their fearsome weapons silenced, their mighty engines stilled, while the supposedly primitive human vessels surrounded them with technologies beyond their comprehension. It was a lesson the Empire would not soon forget, that appearances could be deceiving, and that sometimes the most dangerous opponent was the one who offered you coffee while hiding their true strength. Intelligence Director Imdu sat alone in his secure office deep within the Imperial capital's intelligence headquarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing centuries of surveillance data. His hands trembled slightly as he swiped through report after report, each one revealing a truth that had been staring them in the face all along. Trade routes spanning the last 300 years showed regular appearances of what they had dismissed as simple merchant vessels. These ships, with their weathered hulls and outdated designs, had been carefully cataloged but never investigated. Who would waste resources investigating such primitive craft? Computer, overlay all recorded flight paths. Imdu commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. The holographic display shifted, showing thousands of routes crisscrossing Imperial space. As the patterns emerged, his eyes widened. These supposedly random merchant vessels had systematically mapped every corner of Imperial space. They had visited every major military installation, every shipyard, every research facility. Their seemingly aimless wanderings had been anything but random. Cross-reference energy signatures with current Earth vessel readings, he ordered. The computer hummed, and new data appeared. Beneath the simple exterior readings, There were faint traces of something else, quantum signatures that matched perfectly with the technology that had just humbled the Empire's finest fleet. Imdu slumped back in his chair, running his hands through his gray hair. "They've been watching us the entire time," he whispered to the empty room. "All those years, those primitive merchant ships." A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. "Director, we've recovered more data from the archived surveillance feeds," his assistant's voice announced. "You need to see this immediately." New images appeared on his screen. Surveillance footage from a space station from 50 years ago. He watched as a merchant captain with Earth features casually shared a drink with an Imperial officer. The Earth human was asking innocent questions about Imperial ship designs, playing the role of an impressed primitive perfectly. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Global Defense Council gathered in their underground chamber. The circular room hummed with quiet conversation as fleet commanders and defense coordinators took their seats. The wall screens showed real-time footage of the Imperial fleet, still helplessly trapped in the gravity wells. Fleet Admiral Ba Jin stood at the central podium, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue light of the holographic displays. "The Empire's intelligence division has begun accessing our decoy archives," he announced, a note of satisfaction in his voice. The assembled leaders nodded in approval. For centuries, they had carefully crafted these archives, filling them with breadcrumbs that would only now begin to make sense to Imperial analysts. "Director Imdu is currently discovering exactly how thoroughly we've mapped their territory," Ba Jin continued, bringing up a display of the Imperial Intelligence Director's office. "His reaction is quite interesting." The council watched as Imdu frantically dug deeper into the archives, uncovering layer after layer of human surveillance. Each discovery led to another, like a carefully arranged trail of dominoes. "How long before they reached the Titan incident files?" asked one of the council members. Bai Jin checked his datapad. "At their current rate of investigation, they should discover those records within the next few hours. That should be particularly enlightening for them." The Titan incident, when an Imperial scout ship had ventured too close to Saturn's largest moon 20 years ago, only to be quietly intercepted and sent away with modified memories. The Empire had never realized that humans had been controlling that entire encounter. Back in the Imperial capital, Imdu found himself staring at a star chart that made his blood run cold. The pattern of human merchant vessel movements over the past century hadn't just been surveillance. It had been a carefully choreographed dance that positioned Earth ships near every critical Imperial installation. They could have struck at any time, he realized, speaking the words aloud to his empty office. They weren't just watching us. They were. He couldn't finish the thought. On Earth, Admiral Ba Jin watched the Imperial Director's revelation with satisfaction. "Shall we proceed to the next phase?" he asked the council. The assembled leaders voted unanimously. It was time to show the Empire just how deep the rabbit hole went. With a simple command, new data began flowing into the Imperial archives. Data that would reveal just how long humanity had been preparing for this moment. "Remember," Ba Jin addressed the council, "our goal was never conquest or dominance. We simply wanted to ensure that when first contact finally happened, it would happen on equal terms." The council members nodded in agreement. After centuries of careful preparation, humanity had achieved exactly that. The Empire was learning a valuable lesson about underestimating other species and about the difference between appearing primitive and being primitive. In his office, Imdu continued his research, unaware that he was seeing exactly what Earth wanted him to see, learning exactly what they wanted him to learn, at precisely the pace they had planned for. The truth was unfolding before him, but it was a truth carefully crafted by centuries of human preparation. The Imperial dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace like metal mountains, their massive forms blocking out the starlight behind them. 5 of these behemoths, each one measuring 20 kilometers in length, represented the ultimate expression of Imperial military might. Their weapon arrays could reduce planets to ash. Their shields could withstand the force of a small sun. Admiral Choi Yun observed their arrival from the bridge of his flagship, Swift Wind, a vessel that would have fit comfortably in one of the Imperial ships' landing bays. His small fleet of 30 ships looked like toys compared to the Imperial dreadnoughts. "They're trying to make a point," he remarked to his bridge crew, studying the tactical display with calm interest. The dreadnoughts were arranging themselves in a classic Imperial attack formation, their weapons charging with enough power to vaporize a small moon. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," his tactical officer announced. "Quantum drive systems are at full capacity." Choi Yun nodded, adjusting his uniform collar. "Let them fire first. It's only polite." The Imperial dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously, their energy weapons lighting up space with enough force to crack a planet's crust. The human ships simply weren't there when the beams arrived. They shifted and flickered like mirages, seemingly existing in dozens of locations at once. "Quantum probability drives performing perfectly," reported the tactical officer. "The Empire's targeting systems are unable to establish a lock on our actual positions." Through the command channel, Choi Yun could hear the Imperial commanders shouting in frustration. Their sophisticated targeting computers couldn't handle ships that existed in multiple probabilistic states simultaneously. Every time they thought they had a lock, they were firing at just one of many possible locations where the Earth vessels might be. "Begin counter-attack pattern Delta," Choi Yun ordered. "Remember, disable weapons only. No crew casualties." His fleet responded with perfect coordination. The small Earth ships danced through space like leaves in a wind, each one splitting into multiple quantum states that made them impossible to track or target. They wove between the massive Imperial ships with graceful precision. Precision-targeted quantum beams struck the Imperial weapons arrays, temporarily shifting them into alternate probability states where they simply ceased to function. The mighty dreadnoughts, pride of the Imperial fleet, found themselves being systematically disarmed by ships they could barely even see. "Sir," called out the communications officer, "the Imperial flagship is demanding our surrender. They're claiming we're in violation of the laws of physics." A small smile crossed Choi Yun's face. "Send them the standard response package." Across the Imperial communication channels, music began playing. An ancient Earth song called "Can't Touch This." The Earth ships continued their elegant dance through space, their quantum drives allowing them to exist in multiple states simultaneously. When Imperial weapons fired, they struck empty space, or rather, they struck one of many possible spaces where the Earth ships might have been, but never where they actually were. "Status report," Choi Yun requested, watching as another weapons array on an Imperial dreadnought flickered and went dark. 80% of Imperial weapons systems have been neutralized," his tactical officer reported. "No casualties reported on either side. Their shields remain at full strength, as per your orders." The Imperial dreadnoughts, each one a city-sized monument to military power, now floated in space with their primary weapons disabled. Their crews watched in a mixture of awe and horror as the small Earth vessels continued to flicker in and out of normal space around them, untouchable and precise in their execution. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Imperial flagship. Their admiral is requesting." A pause for diplomatic discussions. Choi Yun nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "Stand down quantum drives. Return all ships to normal space state." He straightened his uniform. "Inform the Imperial Admiral that we would be happy to discuss terms, and have the galley prepare some refreshments. I believe they might need a drink after this demonstration." The Earth ships solidified into single states, their quantum probability fields settling into normal space. They took up position around the massive Imperial dreadnoughts, looking like small birds perched on sleeping giants. The contrast in size made the demonstration all the more impressive. David had once again defeated Goliath, not with violence, but with superior understanding of the universe's fundamental laws. "Send a message to Earth Command," Choi Yun ordered. "Operation Minimal Force successfully completed. The Empire is ready to talk." The grand chamber of the Imperial Senate buzzed with nervous energy as thousands of representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. The massive circular hall, with its soaring crystal dome and ornate decorations, had never felt so tense. Commander Han Yule stood at the central podium, his usually confident demeanor replaced by a mixture of humility and urgency. "Honored senators," he began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber, "I stand before you today to present findings that will change our understanding of humanity and our place in the galaxy." The holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing detailed images of Earth's ships. Every dent, every rust patch, every seemingly outdated sensor array was highlighted in precise detail. "What you're seeing is not the result of primitive engineering or limited technological capability," Han Yule continued. "Each imperfection, each apparent flaw, was deliberately crafted. The humans weren't primitive. They were advanced enough to make their technology look primitive." Murmurs spread through the assembled senators as Han Yule displayed footage from the recent naval engagement. The small Earth vessels danced through space, existing in multiple states at once, easily disabling the Empire's most powerful ships. Their quantum probability drives operate on principles our scientists are only beginning to understand. The rust patterns on their hulls, advanced sensor dampening systems designed to look like decay. Those outdated sensor arrays, quantum scanning systems far beyond our current capabilities. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Global Defense Council gathered in their chamber beneath the Rocky Mountains. Admiral Lee Sung addressed the assembled leaders, his calm voice carrying across the room. "The time has come to show the Empire our true face," he announced. "All hidden facilities are ready for revelation." With a series of commanded inputs, centuries of careful deception began to fall away. In orbit around Earth, massive sections of space seemed to ripple and tear, revealing shipyards that had been hidden in dimensional pockets. Vessels of incredible design emerged, their hulls gleaming with technology that made even their quantum drag ships look simple in comparison. On Mars, the seemingly barren red surface shimmered like a desert mirage, revealing sprawling cities protected by environmental shields. The human colonies that the Empire had dismissed as primitive domes were actually vast metropolises, home to millions. Venus's thick clouds parted, showing orbital rings and floating cities that had been cloaked by advanced atmospheric processors. Every planet and major moon in the solar system revealed hidden wonders, each one demonstrating levels of technology that the Empire had never imagined possible. Back in the Imperial Senate, Commander Han Yule displayed new images as they came in. "Look at what we missed," he said, his voice filled with wonder and regret. "While we were judging them by their apparent primitive state, they were studying us, learning about us, preparing for the day we would meet." The Senate chamber erupted in shocked discussions as more revelations appeared on the screens. Centuries of surveillance data showed how human ships had mapped Imperial space while disguised as simple merchants. Research stations that had been hiding in plain sight revealed themselves throughout the galaxy. In Earth orbit, Admiral Lee Sung prepared to address the Imperial delegation aboard their flagship. The room had been carefully prepared, with both human and Imperial refreshments available. As the Imperial representatives entered, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe, Lee Sung greeted them with a warm smile. "We wanted peaceful first contact," he explained, gesturing for them to take seats. "We had hoped you would approach us as equals rather than conquerors. When our long-range sensors detected your expansion towards Earth 3 centuries ago, we began preparing for this meeting." He activated a holographic display showing the solar system in its newly revealed glory. "Everything you see now, the shipyards, the colonies, the quantum technology, all of it existed when you first discovered Earth. We simply chose to hide it, hoping that when we finally met, it would be as friends rather than as rivals." The Imperial delegates stared in amazement as more hidden facilities revealed themselves. Space stations appeared from dimensional pockets, research facilities emerged from within asteroids, and fleets of advanced ships dropped their camouflage. The coffee I offered earlier, Lee Sung added with a gentle smile. That was genuine. Even with all our technology, some things are best kept simple. Would you like to try some now? We have much to discuss about our future together. The revelation continued across the solar system, as humanity finally showed its true face to the galaxy. It was a face not of a primitive civilization afraid of a superior force, but of an advanced society that had chosen patience and wisdom over pride and aggression. The Empire was learning that true power lay not in the ability to dominate, but in the wisdom to wait for the right moment to extend a hand in friendship. The space station hanging in Jupiter's orbit was a perfect blend of human and imperial engineering. Its spiral arms stretched out against the backdrop of the giant planet's swirling storms, creating a breathtaking view that caught the attention of both delegations. Inside the station's primary conference room, Admiral Lee Sung and Commissioner Kang Ta sat at a polished table made from earth oak and imperial crystal. Steam rose from delicate cups filled with fresh coffee, its rich aroma filling the air. The Earth delegation had insisted on serving real coffee, brewed by hand rather than by replicator. Small plates of pastries from both worlds sat between them, a simple gesture of cultural sharing. Your ships, Kang Ta began, his eyes drawn to the view outside where several human vessels floated in formation. Their true forms were now visible, sleek and elegant, no longer hidden behind false rust and primitive designs. They're beautiful. Thank you, Lee Sun replied, taking a sip of his coffee. We've had a long time to perfect them. Though I must admit, some of us grew quite fond of the rustic disguises. The Imperial Commissioner smiled slightly, remembering how thoroughly they had been deceived. Your ability to maintain that deception for centuries is remarkable. 300 years of preparation, all for the sake of peaceful first contact. We believed it was worth the wait, Lee Sung said, setting down his cup. Now shall we discuss cultural exchange programs? I believe both our peoples have much to learn from each other. The next several hours were spent drafting agreements that would reshape the relationship between humanity and the Empire. Teams of diplomats and legal experts from both sides worked together, creating frameworks for cooperation rather than conquest. These research initiatives, Kang Ta noted, reviewing one section of the treaty, sharing quantum probability drive technology with our scientists. While your engineers help us improve our shield harmonics, Lee Sung added. Together, we can achieve more than either of us could alone. Outside the conference room, human and Imperial crew members were already beginning to mingle. An Imperial engineer listened in fascination as a human explained the concept of memes, while nearby, a human scientist eagerly learned about Imperial art forms. The treaty's first contact protocols were especially important. Both sides agreed that future encounters with new civilizations would be handled jointly, combining human patience with Imperial protocol. The Empire's tendency to judge technological advancement by appearances would be balanced by humanity's more subtle approach. There is one thing I still don't understand, Kang Ta said as they reviewed the final documents. Even when we had our most powerful weapons aimed at Earth, your people responded with jokes and music. Weren't you afraid? Lee Sung smiled warmly. Commissioner, we had spent centuries preparing for that moment. Our response wasn't just humor, it was confidence. We knew who we were, who you were, and exactly how the situation would unfold. As the final signatures were added to the treaty, celebration broke out across both fleets. The space station's observation deck filled with members of both species, sharing drinks and stories. Human officers taught Imperial diplomats to dance, while Imperial artists began sketching the stunning view of Jupiter. Later, as the human delegation prepared to depart, Commissioner Kang Ta stood with his aide watching their ships power up. The vessels seemed to shimmer as their quantum drives engaged, their beauty enhanced by the knowledge of the incredible technology they contained. Send a message to Imperial Command, he said quietly. Revised first contact protocols. Add new warning. If the species responds to threats with humor, retreat immediately. He paused, then added, and offer them coffee. The human ships departed in a display of graceful coordination, their quantum drives creating patterns of light that looked like dancing stars. As they vanished into quantum space, Kang Tai realized that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't their advanced technology or their patient deception. It was their understanding that true strength lay in knowing when to reveal power and when to hide it, when to fight and when to share a cup of coffee. The station continued to orbit Jupiter, a symbol of what could be achieved when two civilizations chose understanding over conquest and patience over power. Inside, humans and Imperials continued their discussions, planning a future that neither side could have imagined just weeks before.